Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-anbiya wal mursaleen. Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in amma ba'd. Tonight, inshallah ta'ala, we'll just read a benefit from Thamarat al-Ilm al-Amal. The benefit of knowledge is action, to act on that knowledge, not just to gain knowledge and have a bunch of information, but the thamara, the fruit of knowledge, the fruit that knowledge produces, is supposed to produce, is an amal, action. And we'll just read the benefit from this until next Wednesday. We'll start, I don't know yet. Inshallah, next week we'll start something from the beginning, another book from the beginning, but for the sake of benefit, there's 2 chapters in here that we try to read through from Shaykh Abdul Razak al-Badr. He has a silsila, he has a series of books of benefit. So this is another one. This is another one of the books. So we'll just read tonight. And there's about 10 different things, 10 different benefits that he brings regarding the fruit of knowledge is that we act on that knowledge. So this is, tonight we're going to read the second one and the 5th one, inshallah. Al-Amr al-Thani, a portion of the second one, and most of this will come from the fifth point. قال حفظه الله الأمر الثاني العبد مسؤول عن علمه ماذا عمل به. This point is that every person, every slave is responsible. Every person is responsible for their knowledge. What did they do with their knowledge? Did they act and implement their knowledge? He says, أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أخبر بأن الناس يوم القيامة يسألون عن العلم الذي حصلوه. That the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he already told us that on the day of judgment, that the people will be asked about their knowledge that they gained, about the knowledge that every person gained, which is going to vary from person to person. Everybody's going to be responsible for their level of knowledge, which means even now, right now, that everybody is responsible for their level of knowledge, that you can't hold people to your standard based on what you know and assume that they know what you know, and then hold them to that. And then when they don't respond the way you think that they should respond, that we criticize them or belittle them or disrespect them or whatever the case may be. That every person is going to be held accountable according to their level. ماذا عملوا به. What did they do with it? كما جاء في حديث أبي برزة الأسلمي رضي الله عنه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا تزول قدم عبد يوم القيامة حتى يسأل عن 4 وذكر منها عليه الصلاة والسلام من علمه ماذا عمل به. That the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم told us in the hadith أخرجه الترمذي that on Abi Barza, that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the 2 feet, a person won't go anywhere. A person won't go anywhere Yawm al-Qiyamah. They won't move Yawm al-Qiyamah hatta yus'al, until they are asked about 4 things that we'll be questioned about, all of us. We'll be asked about 4 things before we go anywhere. And he mentioned from those things, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned a person's knowledge. What did they act on from that knowledge that they gained? Yawm al-Qiyamah. What did you implement from the knowledge that you gained in the dunya? He says, وَلِهَذَا جَاءَ عَنْ أَبِي دَرْدَاء رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُ أَنَّهُ قَالَ إِنَّمَا أَخْشَى يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَنْ يُنَادِينِي رَبِّي عَلَى الرُّؤُوسِ الْخَلَائِقِ فَيَقُولُ يَا عُوَيْمِرْ مَاذَا عَمِلْتَ فِيمَا عَلِمْتَ. The hadith of Abi Darda. Abi Darda. He was reading from his hikmah of Abi Darda, Wasai Abi Darda yesterday. That he said, I fear that Yawm al-Qiyamah, the day of judgment, that Allah will call me in front of all of the creation I will be called in front of all of the creation, and then Allah will say to me, Ya Uwaymir. Allah will say, Uwaymir, this is his name. It's Kunya Abu Darda, his name, Uwaymir. It will be said, he said, I fear that Allah will say, Uwaymir. After he calls me in front of all the creation, Mada Amilt, what did you do with what you learned? Whatever you learned in the dunya, what did you do with that knowledge? Showing the seriousness and the makana of acting on knowledge. فَكُلُّ عِلْمٍ حَصَّلَهُ الْعَبْدُ يُسْأَلْ عَنْهُ يَوْمُ الْقِيَامَةِ. So every piece of knowledge that a person gains, they will be asked about it. Question, all of us will be asked about it Yawm al-Qiyamah. What do we do with that knowledge? لِأَنَّ مَقْصُودَ الْعِلْمِ الْعَمَلِ. Because the intent behind knowledge is action, not just to memorize mutun, and that's it. I memorized this, I memorized that, I know this, and that we don't act on it, and that we don't act on it. And this is why every person will be asked about the knowledge that they gained. Now in the second chapter, which is the longer portion, the fifth point, is called, it's examples from the Sahaba and after the Sahaba on their rushing and their hirs, how they were diligent in their seriousness to rush and act on the knowledge that they gained. How serious they were when they came to not just seeking knowledge, not just learning, but acting on it. Al-Amru al-Khamis, Musara'at al-Salaf radiallahu anhum lil-amal bil-ilm. How they would rush to act on the knowledge. He says, مما يبين هذا المقام حال السلف رضي الله عنهم العجيبة في المبادرة للأعمال والمسارعة إليها والمواظبة على فعلها. He says, it's going to make it, what clarifies the importance of acting on knowledge is the situation. If you look at the lives and the biographies of the Salaf, starting with the Sahaba and the Tabi'een and all the Imams that come after them, you'll find that they weren't just people who were considered from the ulama, al-alim, but they were also considered ibad, worshippers, people that were known for serious worship. We're talking about serious worship, fasting, voluntary fast for 20, 30 years, praying every night. They were known for serious worship. They weren't just known for having knowledge of the sunnah, having knowledge of aqidah. They were known for worship also. Along with all of that knowledge, they were known for having good adab. They were known for worshiping. So they were people who rushed. He said people who rushed to do the actions, and they were continuous. And if you read some of their biographies, if it wasn't for that they were recorded in the books, they would be, some of the stories are unbelievable. Some of the stories are unbelievable. You wouldn't even believe that a man could do that, or a woman. That's the importance of reading the biographies of the Salaf. Start with the Sahaba. After knowing the seerah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, knowing how serious the Sahaba were and how diligent they were in implementing the knowledge, like Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu, that he was known for what? Abdullah bin Umar. Anybody know what Abdullah bin Umar was known for? Abdullah bin Umar, the son of Umar bin Khattab. Specifically, he was known for something specific. Abdullah bin Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. Abdullah bin Umar was known, he was so serious about following the sunnah, if he saw the footprint of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, right, he would try to put his foot in the same spot, the same space, the same spot that the Prophet ﷺ stepped in, he wanted to step in and walk in. So how serious they were about following the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. He says, their seriousness included al-ityan biha fawra sama'iha min Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that they would do it immediately when they heard it from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Immediately when they heard the hadith of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, yubadiruna mubadaratan ajiba. It was amazing how they would rush and do it. Rush, when they heard something, they would rush. It wasn't oh, that's decent, right? They wanted to do it, not just record it. They wanted to act on it. He says, وَيُسَارِعُونَ مُسَارَعَةً عَظِيمًا لِلْعَمَلِ بِمَا يَأْمُرُهُمْ بِهِ صَلَوَاتُ اللَّهِ وَسَلَامُ عَلَيْهِ. And they would also rush when they were commanded with something. It was a serious, what do you call it? It was a serious, they felt it was a serious need. It wasn't something that they delayed. It wasn't something that they were negligent about. They were laxed about. It was serious. And and it was something that they continued to do. It's not like they did it one time, they would continue to do it. And that's why when you read those stories, it'll tell you, it mentioned long periods of time, 25 years, a man fasted and his wife didn't know. 20 years, a man fasts, 20 years, and his wife doesn't know he's fasting. 40 years, one narration said a man, 40 years, older than some of us, a man was in the masjid at the time of the adhan. When they call the adhan, he's by the mu'adhin. That's a long time to have some diligence and hits to keep something up. And there's tons of narrations of things like that. طيب, he says, therefore, ينقل عنهم نقول كثيرة جدا تدل على شدة عنايتهم وعظيم رعايتهم لهذا الأمر. There are tons of narrations that show how serious they were about acting on knowledge. From those narrations, ما جاء في الصحيحين, a narration that comes in the Sahihain, Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, and other than that, Hadith Ali radiallahu anhu, narration of Ali ibn Abi Talib في قصة فاطمة رضي الله عنهما بنت النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام. And this story, the Hadith of Ali, it says, عندما جاءت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم تطلب خادما, that his daughter Fatima came to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and she wanted a khadim, not necessarily a slave, a servant. She wanted a servant. فقال لها عليه الصلاة والسلام. So he told her, أولا أدلك على ما هو خير لك من خادم. You want me to show you something that's better than a servant? Something that's better than that. إذا أويت إلى الفراش تسبحين الله 33 وتحمدينه 33 وتكبرينه 33. He said, I'll tell you something. You want me to point you to something that's better than having a servant? Every night when you go to bed, when you go to bed, he mentioned to us some dhikr. Say Subhanallah 33 times, then Alhamdulillah 33 times, and then Allahu Akbar 33 times before you go to bed. Tayyib, this is what he told. Who? Who is he telling this? Fatima. Radiallahu anha. Tayyib, Ali said, radiallahu anha, Ali said, فما تركتها منذ سمعتها من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. When he heard it, Prophet was talking to Fatima. When Ali radiallahu anha heard it, he said, I didn't leave it off. I didn't stop doing it. I didn't stop saying those dhikr, that adhkar, every night before I went to bed, once I heard it from the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it wasn't even directed to him. But once I heard it from the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, I didn't leave it off at all. عن داود ibn Abi Hind, عن Nu'man ibn Salim. And these narrations here are showing how serious they were about implementing knowledge, that they were rushed to do it. He said, what? I'm going to do it now. عن داود ibn Abi Hind عن النعمان ibn Salim عن عمرو ibn أوس قال حدثني عن بسة ابن أبي سفيان في مرضه الذي مات فيه. This chain of people, right? This chain of people here, it's important to know that it's going to come back around. Because right now the chain is going one way and then it's going to go another way. طيب. Dawood ibn Abi Hind said, Nu'man said here, Amr, right? قال حدثني عن بسة Ibn Abi Sufyan fi mardihi. He said he heard from the man in his when he was on his deathbed. When he was on his deathbed, he heard this hadith from him. Qala, the man said, Sami'tu Habiba. He said, I heard Habiba taqulu. She said, Habiba said, Sami'tu Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Habiba said, I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say. So you got Habiba, right? Then you have Anbasa ibn Abi Sufyan, going back up. طيب. Habiba, he heard from Habiba, سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول من صلى اثنتي عشرة ركعة في يوم وليلة بني له بهن بيت في الجنة. She said, I heard the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, whoever prays 12 rak'ah throughout the day and the night, that a house will be built for them in paradise. Whoever prays 12 rak'ah throughout the day and the night, then a house will be built for them in paradise. We're talking about voluntary, not the salawat, not the 5 obligatory prayers, right? طيب, so that's the hadith that he heard when he was on his deathbed from Habiba. طيب, قالت Habiba. Habiba said, the one who heard it, because she's the narrator, she said, قالت حبيبة فما تركتهن منذ سمعتهن من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. She said, those 12 rak'ah, I didn't leave them off. I didn't leave them off ever since I heard them from the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ever since she heard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, she never stopped praying those 12 rak'ah. طيب, حبيبة. طيب, قال عنبسة. Anbasa heard from Habiba, right? Anbasa said, فَمَا تَرَبْتُهُنَّ مُنْذُ سَمِعْتُهُنَّ مِنْ Habiba. He said, ever since Habiba told me that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said it, I never stopped praying those 12 rak'ah. طيب. قال Amr ibn Aus. Amr ibn Aus heard from Anbasa. He said, مَا تَرَبْتُهُنَّ مُنْذُ سَمِعْتُهُنَّ عَنْ Anbasa. He said, since I heard it from Anbasa, I never stopped praying those 12 rak'ah. قال Nu'man. Nu'man heard from Amr. Right? قال Nu'man bin Salim. مَا تَرَبْتُهُنَّ مُنْذُ سَمِعْتُهُنَّ مِنْ Amr ibn Aus. Rawah Muslim. And that hadith is in Sahih Muslim, showing that when they heard it, it was urgent. It wasn't just another hadith to put in the book, another hadith to read casually. طيب, he says, فهذه همة عالية جدا في المصارعة والمواظبة معا. This shows the high level and the high goals and aspirations they heard, not just in rushing to the action, doing it immediately, but continuously doing it. Not just doing it once, but continuously doing it. It says, جاء في صحيح البخاري. Also in Sahih al-Bukhari من حديث أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه. That Abu Huraira, he said, أوصاني خليلي بثلاث لا أدعهن حتى أموت. He said, I was advised by my good friend, meaning the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. He said, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam advised me with 3 things that I will never stop doing until I die. That I will never stop doing until I die, which is muwadhaba. That it takes continuous, it's not just once. That he will continue to do it. He said, the first thing, Sawmi thalathati ayyamin min kulli shahr. Fasting 3 days voluntarily out of each month. The first thing the Prophet advised him with. Secondly, he said, Salat al-duha. And praying Salat al-duha. You know Salat al-duha? What time is Salat al-duha? Between Fajr and Dhuhr.
Right when the sunrise, at the sunrise. Right before noon.
Between Fajr and Dhuhr?
Yes. As soon as the sun rises,
Sahih.
when the sun rises,
After Fajr.
Yes, after Fajr once the sun rises.
Before?
Dhuhr.
Well, not between Fajr and Dhuhr. That means it's before Fajr. After Fajr, because the sunrise, right? After the sun rises. Which right now, mathalan, 9:30, 9 o'clock, all that time right there is 2 rak'ahs.
2 rak'ahs?
Could be 2, 4,
It's 8 though, right?
2, 8, up to 8.
Up to 8, not past 8.
Allah, not past 8. Up to 8. Inshallah. Tayyib. He advised him to fast 3 days out of every month and to pray Salat al-Duha wa nawmin ala witr, and to pray witr before he goes to sleep. And he said, I won't leave it off until I die. Radiallahu anhu. طيب. He said, وَمِثْلُهُ تَمَامًا مَا وَرَوَاهُ مُسْلِمٌ فِي الصَّحِيحِ مِنْ حَدِيثِ أَبِي دَرْدَاء. He said, you will find the same thing narrated on Abu Darda. قال أوصاني حبيبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بثلاث لن أدعهن ما عشت وذكر هذه الثلاث. He said the same thing. Abu Darda said the same thing. Habibi, meaning the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he advised me with 3 things. I will never leave them off. I'll never stop doing them as long as I'm living. And then he mentioned the same 3 things: fasting 3 days voluntary out of each month, praying Salat al-Duha, and praying Salat al-Witr before going to sleep. Fuck.
3 days. Is he speaking about the white nights or just 3 days period?
In this narration, it didn't specify. It just said 3 days. And there are numerous days that can be fasted. There are numerous days that can be fasted. But he just mentioned 3 days, which could be Ayyam al-Bid, 3 days straight. Could be Allah.
Okay, so those 3 days do not include the voluntary fasting on Monday and Thursday.
It's not included in that. This narration doesn't specify it has to be 3 straight days. This narration.
And isn't it hadith or something where it says that we're not supposed to fast on Friday?
Yeah. That's the issue. That's the issue. But with that, they don't have nothing. Is that related to fasting, or you just saying in general?
Just in general.
In general, yeah, that's the issue. Fasting on Fridays alone, without fasting any other day with it. Why don't fast on Friday? Anybody know? It's their Eid. Their Eid. Fasting on their Eid.
I was gonna ask, if you was already fasting like Thursday, can you continue to Friday?
What you mean?
If you told yourself like I'm gonna fast, like if you fast Thursday but you want to continue fasting, and you fast Friday.
When you say continue fasting, what you mean? You mean don't break your fast on Thursday?
Yeah.
Don't eat.
Friday, I mean.
You mean don't eat anything
Yeah.
on Thursday?
Into past Friday.
That's another issue. You mean don't even break fast on Thursday, you saying?
Like you fasting Thursday, but you continue to Friday.
Continue, meaning you're not going to make iftar. You're going to eat, and then you're going to fast Friday?
Yeah. No, not. Well, yeah.
You're going to break fast, and then you're going to get up Friday and fast again.
Well, yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it was.
That's what he's talking about. Fasting on Friday. The issue is fasting on Friday alone. Generally, not to fast on Friday alone, but there are times when you may need to fast on Friday. That's a little more detail, but in general, you shouldn't just fast on Friday, Yom Jumu'ah.
Got a question. If you can't fast, what else is there that you can do?
As far as what?
I guess voluntary, any type of sunnah obligation, anything that falls, I guess, in accordance to the sunnah.
What you
If you're not
mean?
able to fast, is there something else that you could do?
Those things are mentioned in the hadith. Pray Salat al-Duha.
Maybe like feed a person.
Oh, they're not able to
Yes,
fast.
they're not able to fast voluntarily, or
No, there's no expiation on a voluntary fast.
Okay.
The penalty for that is on an obligatory fast. The voluntary fast is not something that you have to pay a penalty on. meaning or something that has to be substituted. That's for obligatory fast.
So the other things you just offer like Salatul Duha, like
Yeah.
you
Pray at night,
Pray
give
at night.
sadaqah. There's plenty to do.
said. Okay.
Alhamdulillah. Tayyib. He says these are hadith. Point 2, in one case, يدل على المسارعة من جهة, that they would rush, number 1, to do those actions, والمواظبة على ذلك. And in the other case, it shows that they were continuous in doing it. The fact that a person says, I won't stop it until I die. As long as I'm living, I'm going to do this. Shows it was a rush to do it, and they were continuous. طيب, he says, وإذا نظرنا في سير السلف الصالح بعد الصحابة ينقل عنهم في هذا المعنى نقول عظيمة جدا. He said, if we look at the lives of the Salaf after the Sahaba, you find many narrations that carry the same meaning. And that's the importance of reading the biographies of the Salaf. Not just knowing their names, but what did they do, what did they go through, who were they, what part of the world did they come from. Find that a lot of them weren't Arabs. Many of them, which is majority, which removes the excuse of us not knowing Arabic. That they weren't Arabs. And they were imams of the dunya. People would travel to that country just to meet and learn from that person right there, whose origin, a lot of times, was not Arabic. They were not Arabs by birth. That wasn't their native tongue. That they had to learn the language, which removes the excuse for us that we're in America, we're not Arabs, it's difficult. I tell you, most of the Muslims in the world are not Arab. Most. It's not an excuse, it's not an excuse. All right? Imam Bukhari. Imam Bukhari Arab? Bukhara, yeah. They look like Asian. Rahimahullah. Tayyib, he said, if you read their biographies, and this is real, you gotta read their biographies. It's not really too much. You could always pull little statements from here and there, but it's nothing like reading a person's bio from front to back and just seeing what the other ulama of their time would say about them. We say high power. You're talking about not the imam of a masjid or a city, the imam of a country. As they said, I didn't leave Baghdad. I didn't leave that whole, except that there was no person more knowledgeable than this man. He was the imam, the qudwa, Shaykh al-Islam, al-Zahid, all these titles that they give him during his time. Like Imam Malik, rahimahullah. And not just Imam Malik, it's a bunch of them. He said, if you read the biographies of self, you'll find that this was the case with many of them. مثل قول Sufyan al-Thawri, rahimahullah. Sufyan al-Thawri. The statement, he says, ما بلغني حديث عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إلا عملت به. He said, I didn't come across one hadith of the Prophet ﷺ except that I would do it, I would implement it, whatever was in the hadith. Not just collecting them in books, implementing them. قال عامر بن قيس الملائي رحمه الله. He said, إذا بلغك الحديث عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فاعمل به ولو مرة تكون من أهله. He said, if a hadith from the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم reaches you, then act on it, even if it's one time. Even if you're only able to act on it once, act on it so that you can be from the people of hadith, so you can be from the people who implement the hadith of the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم. Shaykh Abdul Razak, he says, وَقَوْلُهُ فَاعْمَلْ بِهِ وَلَوْ مَرَّةً. The fact that he says, act on it even if it's one time, right? He says this is regarding هذا في السنن والرغائب, when it comes to sunan actions. Sunan, not obligatory actions, right? Obligatory things, it's not sufficient to do once. It's not sufficient to pray all 5 prayers one day, and then you say you follow the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's obligatory, follow, right? It says, this one time regarding voluntary. Even if you're only only able to do that voluntary action one time, do it one time. He says, أما الواجبات والفرائض فلا يكفي ليكون من أهله أن يعمل به مرة. When it comes to the obligatory things, it's not enough that a person only does it one time. A person only pray, only fast Ramadan, they fasted 1 year out of their life. That's not enough for the obligatory things. He says, it's related by Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah, an shaykhihi, from his shaykh. Who is Ibn al-Qayyim's shaykh? Shaykh al-Islam, Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah. Ibn al-Qayyim said, لما ذكر ابن القيم حديث أبي أمامة عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال من قرأ آية الكرسي دبر كل الصلاة لم يكن بينه وبين الجنة إلا أن يموت. He said when he mentioned this hadith to Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, Ibn al-Qayyim mentioned a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever reads Ayat al-Kursi after every salah, there was nothing between that person and entering paradise except death. The fact that they read Ayat al-Kursi after every salah. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah قال بلغني عن شيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية أنه قال ما تركتها ركيب كل الصلاة. He said he found out that Shaykh al-Islam said when he heard the hadith, he didn't stop reading it after every salah. He would read it after every salah. He would read it after every salah. Musara'a, that they would rush to do it and then continue doing it. Another narration on Imam Ahmad, Maja'an al-Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, which is famous, he's famous for, what is Imam Ahmad famous for? Fiqh, defending the Quran. Yeah, the Mihna of Imam Ahmad.
That's the one you said was tortured.
Yeah, he was tortured, rahimahullah. And he's famous for his Musnad, Usul Sunnah, Aqidah, famous for Aqidah, his defense of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah and Aqidah, famous for his fiqh, and he's famous in Hadith. And that's not just him, not just Imam Ahmad. The Imams of the Salaf, they weren't just people of Aqidah only.
Did you say the narration of the pen too?
The narration of the pen, the Nahbara al-Maqbara, Talib al-Ilm, he was known. He was known to be an abid. He was also known to be a worshipper. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. They weren't just known to be strong in Aqidah and then they act a fool. They weren't. They wasn't known for that. No.
Just to rewind you a little bit. Ayat al-Kursi, that's after and before Salah.
Every Fard Salah.
Before Salah.
What kind of narration is that though? Like that's not a hadith.
This one? Yes, a hadith. He just mentioned a hadith that Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn al-Qayyim told Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah the hadith. The student informed the teacher of a narration of the hadith. And when he heard the hadith, he said he didn't stop doing it. He didn't stop implementing it. He would do it after every salah. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. Imam Ahmad, famous for Aqidah, famous for Hadith, his Musnad, famous for fiqh.
Why you do that? Why you do that after his question? Because I
What
knew
question?
he was there. I knew it was when he said about the
After every salah?
Yeah. Is it because of Sheikh what they mean? Sheikh
It's a lot of masas.
Yeah, nah.
A lot of times it's fiqh.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes a lot of room for interpreting things. And sometimes it's not really the majal. It's not the time to go into everything. But definitely after the Fard. After the Fard, for sure, inshallah. You don't want to go, sometimes it's not really the proper time to discuss certain things, to go too far off, not to go too far off. Of Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah. That he was known to be a abid, the same one who his son said that my father used to pray every day. How many rak'ah?
200.
More.
Yeah, it was
300.
300.
Every day. Voluntary. 300 rak'ah every day, voluntary. Imam Ahmed, rahimahullah. My father used to pray 300 rak'ah every day. At the same time, they said when he used to give a class, 5,000 people would show up. 5,000 people coming to his dars. He's praying 300 rak'ah a day. 5,000 people coming to the dars. He wasn't just a person of ilm, he was a person of ibadah, worship. And when they came, he wasn't just a person of worship and ibadah, he was a person of adab. They said 5,000 came, but only 500 wrote the hadith. Only 500 wrote down their ilm. The other 4,500 came to benefit from his adab. 4,500 people come to benefit from adab. Ilm, ibadah, worship, knowledge, adab, they were the whole package we said. We think, my aqeedah is good, so, nothing else really matters. Because I'm on the sunnah as far as my aqeedah. If that's even right. Allah musta'an. Imam Ahmed, rahimahullah, he said, ما كتبت حديثا وقد كتب المسند معروف حجمه وكثرة الأحاديث التي فيه. The Musnad of Imam Ahmed, if I'm not mistaken, has about 40,000 or more ahadith. If I'm not mistaken, 40,000 narrations in the Musnad of Imam Ahmed. It's at least 30 volumes or more. 30 volumes or more. 30 volumes or more, right? He said, ما كتبت حديثا إلا عملت به. I didn't write down one hadith except that I acted on it. Right? Then he said, حتى إنني سمعت أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم احتجم وأعطى الحاجم دينارا فاحتجمت فأعطيت الحاجم دينارا. He said, to the point where I heard the hadith that the Messenger ﷺ, he got cupped. The hijama, right? Everybody know cupping?
No.
They take the blood out. That the Messenger ﷺ, he got cupped, and when he got cupped, he gave the person who did the cupping, he paid him a dinar, a form of money. He says, so what I did was, I went and got cupped, and I paid the man a dinar. Just like the narration says. And he says, فهذه طريقة السلف في حرصهم ومواظبتهم ودأبهم. He said, this is the way of the Salaf in their diligence and their continuousness of following the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of implementing وعظيم عنايتهم بالعلم, and how they were serious about knowledge and acting on the knowledge, not just gaining the knowledge. And how they were serious, rushing to the knowledge and rushing to implement the knowledge and continuing to implement that knowledge.
I got a question. Can you break down, talking about knowledge, can you break down the meaning of knowledge precedes speech and action?
The meaning of knowledge precedes speech and action. I mean, generally, basically, you can't. It's impossible to know what a good deed is except by Kitab al-Sunnah, right? This is how we know what is khayr, was good, and was evil, based on the legislation, what comes in the Quran, what comes in the Sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So how does a person know if they're doing a righteous action or not? Except that they have knowledge and thing, but you're going against the ayah in the Quran. You're going against the clear hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And if that's the case, then it can't be from goodness. If you're clearly going against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, going against the Quran, what Allah revealed in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then it can't be. That's why, as the other man said, any goodness in it that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam already guided us to it. And any evil, he already warned us from to stay away from it. You gotta have knowledge of what to do. If we just did what we thought was the best thing to do, it'd be chaos. It'd be chaos. Like, in some cases it is chaos, because a lot of things we don't know, right? A lot of people don't know how to do things, so they just go on what they think. And then it's chaos. And then by the time they figure out that it was wrong and they want to clean it up, it's a mess. It's like, a lot of times it's out of control, especially in marriages, stuff like that. Especially in marriage. People don't know how to divorce. When can I divorce my wife? When can I divorce my wife? If I do this and divorce it, does it count or doesn't it count? Come to find out, I count it. Count it? Yeah. That was the third time you divorced her. Yeah. Based on not knowing, right? What are the limitations set in the Quran and the Sunnah? So since we don't know, we just do the best thing. I guess we just do it like this. Instead of following the other ayat, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ. Ask the people of knowledge if you don't know. If you don't know. If you don't know something, there's no aib. There's nothing embarrassing about asking when you don't know something. We come from, a lot of us, we shy to ask. We don't want to look like we don't know something. Right? And we also come from, a lot of us, we don't want to look like we do know something. We don't want to be the sharpest and we don't want to be the dumbest. We want to be regular. Right? We don't want to raise our hands and say, I know it, I know it, I know it, because everybody's going to look at you and say, dang, what, you studied? You studied for the test? Yeah, I said, it's like, it's some aid, right? Nobody wanted to be the smart guy. Coming up. Y'all look like y'all about my age. Nobody wanted to be the one who was smart in class, because nobody respected the smart one. He didn't want to get the respect. He wasn't the one that people respected, right? He was in the corner. Dunce, we used to call him, right? Nobody wanted to be that person. And people didn't mind not knowing, but that's not Islam. Islamically, that's not acceptable. Islamically, that's not acceptable. And when something like that goes against the revelation, when our ideas and our custom, where we come from, when it goes against what we find in the Quran and the Sunnah, we got to leave that. We got to latch on to the revelation. We got to put the revelation first. Even if we're comfortable doing and it's uncomfortable in the beginning, we have to train ourselves to latch on to the revelation. We can't be stuck in going against Allah and His Messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam. So knowledge, definitely, the importance of knowledge, and that's actually the first chapter in here, the importance of knowledge and all the narrations and benefits of knowledge, and fa'alam annahu la ilaha illallah. That's on the first page. وهو مقدم العلم. Knowledge muqaddam. Have knowledge that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah. Then seek Allah's forgiveness. And that's a whole talk in itself. And then the hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he used to make a dua every day after Fajr, asking Allah for beneficial knowledge. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, أسألك علما نافعا اللهم إني أسألك علما نافعا. After the taslim, Salat al-Fajr, he used to make dua, oh Allah, I ask you for beneficial knowledge. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, قُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا. He said that in the Quran, Allah says, say, oh my Lord, increase me in knowledge. And the early mentor said he didn't ask for increasement in anything else. Not increasement in money, not in power, status. The only increasement that he asked for in the Quran was ilm, knowledge. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I think we'll stop there. Inshallah. Ask Allah to make us those who implement what we hear to the best of our ability, and not be from the people that just carry knowledge around and don't benefit from it. I mean, next week, inshallah, we'll start. Allah knows best. I don't know yet. Maybe. I don't know. Inshallah, about Friday, I know. Inshallah. Next Wednesday? It'll be Wednesday at 6:30, but I'm not sure yet.
إن هذا هم دين فانظروا الآن كلهم دينكم.
Saeed, what about Monday or Monday?
Monday is still going to be Kitab al-Nikah.
Oh,
Monday is the book of marriage.
That's not going nowhere.
Right?
Shape.
That's slide of
Uh-huh.
the marriage thing, because sometimes the brothers, like you said, you divorce your wife 3 times at the same spot.
Mm-hmm.
Not divorce, go second, the third, divorce it 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the Sharia.
Is it part of the Sharia?
It's part of the.
There's a such thing called talaq bid'i. Talaq bid'i. It's a talaq that's bid'ah. It's a bid'ah. But even though it's a bid'ah, then the man say it still counts.
So the good bit of
No such thing as a bid'ah.
why does it count?
Why does it count? When you come to marriage and divorce, especially divorce, is serious. Divorce is serious. When you're talking about saying that to your wife, that she's divorced, it's a serious thing. Even if you was joking. It's serious. It's not a word to be thrown around. When you start getting into this divorce, a lot of times, like we saying, as the brother said, I was just mad when I said it. Even if you're mad, you got to be at a level, a high level. They describe that anger of madness as that you at a level you don't even, we say black out.
Yeah, that's what it says.
You don't even know what you're saying, right? Which is possible. That's possible. It's not like it doesn't happen, but majority of the times, is that the case? And when the person listening, I don't know. I don't know what you did. I'm just asking you a question. Did you know what you were saying when you said it? You told you divorced her 3 times in one sitting? That's a whole nother issue. Divorcing 3 times in one sitting is an issue. Divorcing the anger, all of it goes back to knowledge, knowing. Can I divorce my wife like that 3 times in one time, and is it going to count? If I'm mad and I divorce my wife, does it count? If I was intimate with my wife, can I divorce her tomorrow? And if I do, does it count? It goes back to knowledge. All of it goes back to knowledge. And if we don't know, then a lot of times we make things harder on ourselves, difficult on ourselves. Not because Islam is difficult, because our own ignorance, us not knowing, we made it difficult by not knowing, by not seeking the proper ilm. Allah musta'an. Allah forgive us and increase us in knowledge. Huh?
Tell him what he was asking. 'Cause
What?
he wanted to know the talaq bid'i.
Talaq bid'i.
How was it valid? If it's
Why does it count?
Yeah.
The fact that it's bid'ah doesn't necessitate that it's invalid. The wording itself, that when you get into the bab nikah, well, right now it's into bab nikah, but the next bab, talaq after nikah, once you start going through that chapter, you'll see how serious those words are, how much weight they carry. It's scary that a man could just say it that easy like that 3 times at once. It was really that bad.
That's what Sheikhul Islam got locked up for.
That mas'ala to talaq, it's serious. And a lot of times we use it like, loosely. Because a lot of us don't come from structured homes. We used to seeing, parents apart, so it don't really affect a lot of us. Because our parents weren't together, a lot of us didn't grow up with parents, mother and father together, the mother and the father. So it's no big deal for the mother and father not to be there, the original mother and father, not a man and a woman. His mother and his father, her mother and her father. For a lot of people, they didn't grow up like that, so they don't see it to be a big deal if they're in the same situation. They figure, I turned out good. Can't be that bad, right? They divorce her just like that. For what? She tripping. Where's she going? She keep leaving the ketchup on the table. Like, come on. You divorced her 3 times? I spoke to her about it. You divorced your wife with all them kids you had 3 times because she wouldn't put ketchup back in the refrigerator?
That's serious.
It's serious. And then he think, well, I was only mad, but see, I was mad when I said it. Damn, that doesn't remove the fact that, you know what I'm saying? It's heavy. That talaq bab is heavy. It's heavy.
For what he said, Sheikh Fawzan said the initial first statement of it is what nullifies it. The other 2 is the bid'ah.
The bid'ah.
Yeah, so the first initial statement is what nullifies it. Because when you first say it, it causes the divorce. SubhanAllah.
Allah forgive us, man. and increases.
Ain't a nahnu min al
Min
haulai.
haulai. Allah musta'an. طيب, we'll stop there, inshallah. We'll continue next week. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad.